Hello, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well today. I just have whoa, sorry, my camera thing. Anyway, I just have a short video for you all today as we talk a little bit about humans, and we're going to try to finish up a little bit. I only have just a little bit more to do on male reproductive behavior. So today we're going to talk about the actual process of sperm production and what is actually occurring in the body to make these changes. So puberty is the major time period. You guys probably can look back and remember this time very fondly for yourself. We will talk about this with females in female reproductive behavior. But generally speaking, when it comes to male sexual behavior, we know that there is certainly hormones involved with these behaviors in humans. We know this because generally speaking, males do not express sexual behaviors until they go through puberty. Now, of course, this is just generally speaking. Puberty tends to happen a little bit later in boys. For girls, the average, I believe, is 11 years old. For boys, it's 13. So generally, when puberty starts, this also coincides with masturbation. This is about when masturbation will start. Generally, boys report that the first time they are interested in doing this is about 13 and a half years old. Also, as far as sexual behaviors go, this is just an interesting stat that about 61% of males report having intercourse before the age of 19. And then as far as testosterone concentration goes, it's very low before puberty. But then once puberty kicks in, those testosterone levels will increase, and they tend to continue to peak. This is concentration in blood plasma, and they tend to be their highest through the late teens, early 20s. And then after, once a man hits around 30, that's whenever those testosterone levels will start on their downward decline. Okay. So this graph is really important. This one is the one that's going to, there will probably be test questions about this, so definitely pay attention to this particular slide and read about this. So remember, whenever we are talking about, this is the HPG axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, gonad axis, the HPG. So where this starts is in the hypothalamus. We have kisspeptin. We talked about kisspeptin briefly. Kisspeptin is what will start getting gonadotropin releasing hormone being produced and released from the hypothalamus. And this really, gonadotropin releasing hormone levels are generally really low before puberty. But once puberty hits, then gonadotropin releasing hormone will start to be released from the preoptic area of the hypothalamus. And so gonadotropin releasing hormone will be released in a pulsatile manner. So it pulsates. So it's not released constantly. And this is really important. So it just kind of pulsates into the anterior pituitary. Once the anterior pituitary receives that signal, that's whenever the cells in the anterior pituitary will start to release follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. Both of these hormones have very specific target cells in the testes. Follicle stimulating hormone will respond in the Sertoli cells, and this is where spermatogenesis, the creation of new sperm, actually takes place. So it's follicle stimulating hormone that will go to the Sertoli cells to cause that production of sperm. Luteinizing hormone, on the other hand, will go to the Leydig cells. So you can think LL, right? Luteinizing hormone will go to the Leydig cells, and it's the Leydig cells that actually produce and release testosterone into the bloodstream. This release of testosterone also will feed back into the Sertoli cells to help with that sperm production. So we do need testosterone at play for that as well. So follicle stimulating hormone will go to the Sertoli cells to start the production of new sperm, and luteinizing hormone will go to the Leydig cells to cause the production of and the release of testosterone. Testosterone is going to positively feed back into the Sertoli cells to help with that sperm production. The other thing that testosterone is doing is, as this process is happening and as sperm is being produced, then testosterone levels will start to increase, and testosterone levels are, of course, circulating in the blood. And remember, they can cross the blood-brain barrier, and they could testosterone could easily slip through those cell membranes. So testosterone levels are rising. Once sperm production is complete, there's enough sperm those sperm cells will start to release something known as inhibin. And this is a hormone that will feed back onto the pituitary gland. So inhibin is feeding back on the pituitary gland when sperm levels are increasing. Inhibin feeds back and tells the anterior pituitary to slow down the release of LH and FSH, saying we've had enough, we got enough sperm, we could decrease this. At the same time, testosterone is being released and those levels are increasing. As those levels increase, the testosterone will also feed back into the anterior pituitary and the hypothalamus, because again, it's crossing the blood-brain barrier. So it's going to feed back into the hypothalamus, where it's going to tell the hypothalamus to stop releasing gonadotropin-releasing hormones. Like, we got enough sperm, we got enough testosterone, it's all good here. So this is a negative feedback loop that is important for the production of sperm and testosterone in males. And this process is constantly going on. It's constantly working because males are producing sperm all the time, constantly. So this is something that is always happening in males to produce new sperm. Okay, so testosterone levels are pretty constant through young adulthood. And again, once a man hits around 30-ish, that's whenever testosterone levels are going to start to decrease. But they don't really decrease until a man hits about 50. So we're going to talk about menopause when we get into female sexual behavior. But there's this idea that there might be something similar with men. So it can be menopause or andropause, whichever term you prefer. But this is the idea that fertility significantly decreases with age in men. Now, it is different than menopause. At menopause, for females, they are unable to reproduce at all. They become completely infertile, no more. Everything shuts down. Cannot have any more babies. Men, on the other hand, still do continue to produce sperm, but their fertility rates significantly declines, and also sperm production is dramatically decreased. They can still fertilize, they can still have babies, so it doesn't shut the system down completely, but it does significantly decrease. So there's some debate with whether this is a condition that should be recognized. Of course, menopause is widely recognized in women, and there's lots of drugs that women are given to help through this process, and actually for the remainder of their life, to replace some of those hormones that are lost. But there's a debate about whether this should actually be recognized in men. Not every man is going to see not every man is going to be affected by this in the same way, but there are certainly some men that do seem to be heavily affected, and they feel they are plagued with tiredness all the time, or they just start to have some mood, some depression, and of course, their sex life can be heavily affected by this. So there are drugs, there are testosterone drugs. There's like I think there's like a deodorant that has testosterone in it to increase testosterone levels, and those are effective treatments when a man is older if he is experiencing some issues with the decline of testosterone. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about briefly is a condition known as hypogonadism, and this is whenever you have way too low levels of testosterone. So this is classified by having less than 300 nanograms per deciliter in your blood. I want to point out that this number here is different than that slide I showed in class where I talked about levels of estrogen and testosterone that's normal in humans, in males and females, because this is nanograms per deciliter. The ones I was showing before is picograms. So this is a different measurement. Nanogram is typical for measuring testosterone. Picogram is normal for measuring estrogen. I don't know why they use different scales for these hormones, but nevertheless, this is a different scale. So that's why these numbers are different than the one before. So what this means is that testosterone levels are not sufficient, and this can be problematic depending on when and if this happens, at what time points this happens in life. So if testosterone levels are way too low during puberty, then puberty will not happen as properly scheduled. So that is, of course, going to affect things like bone growth, muscle growth, the voice deepening, the Adam's apple development. All of these things that generally should happen in puberty are not going to be happening if this is occurring before puberty happens. This certainly needs to be addressed before puberty. In adulthood, if this happens, then puberty has already happened, but nevertheless, testosterone is important for maintaining that muscle mass and that bone structure in men, and so that is going to be compromised. And then, of course, they could have sexual problems as well. If you don't have testosterone, you're going to have a significant decrease in sperm production. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that this happens. Because we're talking about the testes, right? It's the Leydig cells that are producing testosterone. So a primary cause, there's two different types of hypogonadism. It could be primary or secondary. If it's primary, then that's because you have a problem with the testes. Because again, these are the cells that are directly involved with making testosterone. So if you have a problem with the testes, then you're going to have primary hypogonadism. There are many reasons for this. Actually, the mumps, if you have the mumps, this can actually cause this to happen. This can affect the testes and damage those Leydig cells. If you have too much iron, that can be problematic. Of course, having testicular cancer in any way, or having an injury to the testes, Klinefelter syndrome is actually known to cause this as well. And then having undescended testes is also one of these, is also classified in this. Secondary hypogonadism is whenever the issue is not with the testes, but instead it's with either the pituitary or the hypothalamus. So you're not producing gonadotropin releasing hormone, or you're not producing follicle stimulating hormone or luteinizing hormone. There's an issue in those particular hormones, which would therefore cause a decrease in the production of testosterone. But the testes are fine in secondary hypogonadism. The problem is with the hypothalamus or the pituitary. So this leads to something known as Kallmann syndrome. Kallmann syndrome is whenever you have secondary hypogonadism. That's another term for this. AIDS, if you have HIV, if you're HIV positive, this can cause issues with the hypothalamus or the pituitary. Taking opiate drugs for too long, obesity, these types of things can fall under this category. Whenever there is not enough testosterone, generally speaking, males will not perform as well sexually, and they will not be as motivated to engage. Okay, so there's a drug that can actually induce hypogonadism. So there is a drug that will cause the decrease in testosterone on purpose. And this drug is called Lupron. Here's a picture of it over here. And what this is this mimics gonadotropin releasing hormone. Now you might think, well, how does that work? If you have more gonadotropin releasing hormone, then you would end up with more testosterone. What this drug does is it causes the constant release of gonadotropin releasing hormone. And what's important about gonadotropin releasing hormone is that it's released in this pulsatile manner. So when it's constant, it's being constantly released, then actually it causes LH and FSH to actually not be produced any longer. So therefore, testosterone will not be produced any longer as well. So this constant release of gonadotropin releasing hormone caused by Lupron is what is going to induce hypogonadism. So when might you use this? Well, this drug has been used to treat prostate cancer. It's actually been shown to be somewhat effective in increasing cognitive ability in men that have Alzheimer's. So I put a question mark there because it's kind of unknown why it works or what's going on there. And then another one is, could this potential drug be used for sex offenders? If we decrease testosterone in sex offenders, then will that be a treatment? So that's something to think about. I'm not sure. There have been some times when this has been used in people who, especially who are pedophiles, but it could be something that could be used to treat those disorders in men. So that is it for this particular video. So this was a short one. I'm going to record another one shortly, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.